On November 5th, Proposition 8 was passed to amend the California Constitution banning the right for gay people to get married. This caused much anger amongst the gay community, so they gathered, rallied, and walked the streets of Hollywood in protest of their civil rights being taken away. To gain a better perspective, I walked into the crowd, listened, and asked questions.
I share your frustration. I share your anger. I share your hurt. We were a community that even had to wage this kind of battle against those who have lied and deceived and used scripture in an awful and evil way.
This is not a religious issue. This is a human rights issue. I was crushed when I heard that people of color were voting against the GLBT community. Crushed. And I started to wonder to myself, how could this be? After all that we have struggled together as one coalition, in the Rainbow Coalition, how could it be? And then the stories started to come in that last night from my own Latino culture on Santa Monica Boulevard, that there were Latino males with Yes on 8 banners screaming faggot and queer at our people along Santa Monica Boulevard. How could that be? Or as I heard the story of our black lesbian volunteer at a polling place who was told by another black woman that her kind didn't deserve civil rights. How could that be? Or my friends Alan and Jeff, who I married on Sunday when they were passing out No on 8 literature, had an old woman come up and spit upon them. How could that be?
So tell me exactly what's going on here.
It's a protest to come out against the divisive and hateful proposition that just passed by 52% in the state, by religious zealots and extremists that don't think we should have equal rights in the state.
So if you think you could say like one thing to the people who voted yes on this proposition, what would you say?
This is ridiculous. And the fact you think this is okay because it's a moral decision shows you don't understand separation between church and state.
Now the interesting thing about separation of church and state is the fact that the Church of Mormon raised so much money. So it seems like separation of church and state, as long as it's for your purpose.
Exactly, and that's the thing you don't understand is once you put religion into our Constitution, when you're no longer the majority of religious belief, I promise you, your beliefs and your rights are next.
If you could talk to like all the people who voted yes, what would you say
I
to
would
them?
just look them in the eye and say, how could you hate people that much that you would deny them their rights?
What would you guys say to people who voted yes on Proposition 8?
I think it's plain up ignorance. It's ignorance, and it's ignorance that is born out of fear. We're exactly the same.
A lot of people are basing their arguments against for Proposition 8 on the basis of religion. How does that not affect you being a man of faith?
Christ's message was about love at the end of the day. Love for everybody. And what people are doing is they're taking bits and pieces of the Bible and manipulating what makes their case stronger. And to that, if you read everything, you realize that it's not as hate-filled as people are making it.
Well, a lot of the ads seem to really purport fear to me. Like they just were going after people's fears. And as a parent, I want my children to learn tolerance and not hate. And that's what they're purporting is that we teach hate and discrimination in our country. I think a lot of it's false. And I think a lot of it is really targeting people's worst fears and making them think that, I don't know, that we're going to turn all their kids gay or something. I don't know. But
they did this. They made it so every adult, their worst fear is that their kids would get hurt.
And you seem to be doing okay.
Yeah.
do you think it hurts kids to know that families can be different?
No.
So I was raised Mormon, and I'm really ticked off that so much of the money and support for this came from the Mormon Church.
Do you know exactly how much came out of the Church of Mormon?
They say anywhere from 40 to like 77%. I mean, they think that, marriage is an institution ordained of God, like a lot of other churches. It's pretty fundamental to their beliefs. But, less than 100 years ago, they practiced polygamy. So if you talk about traditional marriage, traditional Mormon marriage is polygamy. And even if you don't look at it that way, you have to think that, over the last 100 years, the Mormon definition of marriage has evolved, but they fail to recognize that.
What would you say to the people who said yes on 8, if you could say anything to them right now?
Think about what you've done. I mean, think about what this is, and ask yourself if you think you're going to be proud of that vote in 20 years.
This protest continued for hours as outraged members of the community walked the streets for miles all over LA. This begs a few questions. Is this a civil rights issue? Why is religion involved with matters of government? And should we be allowed to discriminate based on sexuality? At this point, it's really no secret to anyone how I feel on this topic. I think that discrimination is wrong, regardless of gender, regardless of race, religion, and sexuality. I think the main issue here is lack of education. And since at this rally I didn't get to talk to anyone who was for Proposition 8, I'm opening up the floor. What is your biggest fear when it comes to gay people being allowed to marry? I also created another poll with the same question. The link to that poll is in the description of this video. And please, when you have a discussion, don't make it an attack. Voice your views and be respectful of how other people feel about those views, whether you're pro or against Proposition 8. This topic is not going to go away anytime soon. So rather than screaming at each other or pretending like the problem doesn't exist, let's talk about it.